the first review hypes episode of The Good, the Boy, and the Ugly might just happen tonight. So I do not know.
We could be like literally just throw it out to the chat. I mean, I'm not kidding.
No, I agree. I just
don't have anything. It's been a pretty crazy week for me too. So
yeah, it's been busy, and then I just right when I was about to get started, I came down to start preparing, and instead I got I was checking Board Game Geek, and like that post just, as soon as I see a post in the long view that's like being disappointed, and I read the post, and it was actually a lot of interesting points to bring up, but they didn't have to be brought up through the lens of being disappointed by the content we had produced. And it was like a lot of the things were like, hey, I wanted you to talk more about like the math and the interaction, and some of the elements there were ones I'm like, I'm pretty sure we talked about that, but yeah, I don't know, like it was a lot of stuff I wanted to respond to, but the fact that it was on a post that said disappointed, I just didn't even want to talk about it. If it had been like, hey, here's some things I love about Alhambra that didn't get talked about, I'd have been like, sure, let's do this. But if it's like saying that like the product is inadequate, saying that the show is inadequate, to me is, like I don't even want to entertain people that are going to just start with that, even though the rest of it was not bad. Oh, long day here for me. And looks like we got Carter in the chat. Let me share the chat with you here, Trent, if you're not already on there.
Hold on.
Carter, what do you want to talk about chat-wise? You might be able to suggest a topic. This is a weird moment for us. Me and Trent are going to be doing this episode just with the two of us, and Andy and TC together with Trent. You guys generally make up the topics, and occasionally I'll throw in something, but it's goodness. Well, TC's here. TC didn't expect you, man.
Hey, I just walked in the door. Oh, hang on, let me turn up my speaker here. Hang on, I'm trying to set up. Trying.
Welcome, dude.
Okay. I can barely hear you. I'm here. Oh,
can you hear? Can you hear? Okay. Kid, did a curriculum night go well?
Pardon me?
Curriculum night?
Oh yeah, it was curriculum night with Liam. It started at 5:30, and it went a while, but I'm here.
Well, it's nice to see you, dude. So, good games for beginners to teach. That's our topic. Are you guys cool with that?
Good games for beginners to teach. Yeah, I think I could get something going.
Sounds good. All right. That's going to be the topic on this episode.
It's better than me ranting about Destiny 2, trust me.
Yeah, I imagine that could be a rabbit hole for us to crawl into.
Oh my God, we would be able to crawl out.
Yeah. Well, avoiding the Destiny 2, then that minefield for TC, we'll go ahead and get this kicked off. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to The Good, the Board, and the Ugly, a podcast about board games. I'm your host, Joe Sallin. On The Good, the Board, and the Ugly, we will review games, and then we'll talk about our topic, good games for beginners to teach, and then we'll hype games on our way out the door. I've got Trent Ham here joining me. Trent, how's it going?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Oh boy, it's been quite the day. It's been a good one, and we're just gonna end on a high note. That'll be good, and it won't take much if that gives you any idea. It's not just Trent here joining me. TC Reed rushed home from a long commitment out there to make it here to record for The Good, the Board, and the Ugly. It's good to see you, TC.
Oh, good to be here. It's a crazy day, but I can be rest assured that my son is getting a good education. I mean, it was a long discussion, but they knew what they were talking about. Thank goodness that's one less thing I have to worry about. And they're not on strike. Yay!
Yay! Speaking of which, I'm pretty sure Jeff Gamble is on strike. I don't know. I imagine that the posts of pictures of games being played by Jeff will stop once his strike comes to an end. So me, unfortunately, not on strike at this moment. Actually, maybe I should not say unfortunately. Man, that makes it sound like I want to go on strike. I don't want to go on strike. I would like to have a few days off, but I'm not going to go on strike. Maybe I could go on strike to get a few days off.
Hey,
no. Anyway, we talk about board games and the tabletop hobby, and we're going to go ahead and kick off with our review segments. In this review, we will talk a little bit about how to play a game and also give you our review of whether or not a game should be played or brought to your table or whatever else criteria. It's very open-ended. We don't really have all that much of a format you must stick to, but we do have a couple here that are going to be good to go. Since I have two and Trent has one, mine are both going to be short. I will start. TC, if you get one, we'll go ahead and have you go right after Trent's. If you want to think one up here right on the spot. Otherwise,
just let me give me a few minutes to think. I'll think of something. It'll be good.
You're good, man. No worries. All right. I'm going to talk about this game called Penk. Now, the topic that we're going to be discussing later on is good games for beginners to teach. Penk is actually one that I would fit right into this category. So why am I not using it as a transition? Because the other game I'm reviewing is also going to be good for that category. Ha ha ha, spoiler alert. All right, so Penk is a game that I received in Italian from Cranio Creations at their Gen Con booth. It is a game in which you are rolling 6 dice to start your turn. These are D6s. There is 1 wild instead of a 6, and you are going to be rolling and writing. This is about the most simple roll that I can imagine. It is simpler than Yahtzee, though it offers many similar decisions. You are just simply trying to roll dice and make them into 3 different groups. In that way, it's kind of like Can't Stop. If you've ever played the game of Can't Stop, you're rolling 4 dice and making 2 pairs out of them. Here, you're rolling 6 dice and making any combination of at most 3 groups of dice. But here's the kicker. Every time you use a combination, you can no longer use that for the rest of the game. And the more dice in that combination you've used, of course, the max being actually not 6, but 5. The most you can get in a single combination is 5. That one's worth the most points. But here's the kicker. You cannot score in a column or row of this roll and write, which is composed of the different amounts of dice in one row and then the different numbers that could be on that dice and the columns. You cannot score a column or row unless you have at least 3 like circles made in that column, meaning that you have achieved at least 3 of the 1 through 5 of that number or of that specific number of dice. It's tough to describe, but basically, like, it's really easy to play, and it's tougher for me to describe here, especially in a podcast form. But just know that this is a combination of Can't Stop and Yahtzee, and it plays extremely quick, extremely easy to teach. Carter, who's here in our live chat, I'm bringing it. I'll show it to you. You can show it to other people. That's the type of game that Penk is. It's designed by the designer of Voyages of Marco Polo. I hope I don't butcher his name, but I think it's like Simone Luciani or something like that. Some other games he's designed as well, like Grand Austria Hotel. Some really good ones, Lorenzo El Magnifico. But Penk is strictly themeless, dice rolling, push your luck, roll and write game that I really liked, and we'll be using it to show to beginners later on. So have you guys any experience with this?
No, this one sounds kind of interesting.
It's brand new, dude. I'm pretty sure I asked that pretty much knowing you weren't going to have any experience. But, you know, if you see it.
I played a number of roll and writes fairly recently, but not that one.
Mm-hmm. This is definitely the lightest roll and write I've ever. Well, goodness, roll and writes are pretty light. This one I feel like is the most like mass market appeal potential, though the game itself requires pencils and doesn't come with pencils. Come on, roll and writes, come with pencils. I want to be able to open the box and actually play it. Come on.
Is it lighter than Yahtzee?
Okay, I think it would be easier to teach, but not less on strategy. Like, because you're racing to cancel out these columns and you're actually making more groups. So it's not just the push your luck element. It's got that Can't Stop element to it as well. I would say that it's got a deeper decision space, but a lighter rule set.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, those are things that are positives. I mean, it's a game that's super, super easy, so there's very little to be in your way of enjoying the experience. So anyway, that was my take on Penk. Now we're moving on to a quick abstract game in a series that Trent is going to be treating us to over the next, I believe, 7 weeks.
Yeah, so I'm trying to make my next 7 reviews, all 7 in this series. And I will say that my hope is at the end of it, then we'll culminate it with an episode of the Long View discussing them.
That would be great.
I'm going to on here go through them one at a time, week after week. I'm talking about the GIPF series, GIPF. It's a series of abstract games that have been published by Rio Grande Games in the U.S., and they just recently reprinted all of them in nice big box editions. Except the boxes of all of them are way too big, but that's a different subject entirely. The first I'm going to talk about is DVONN. DVONN. Trust me, this entire series has weird names. It's going to be easier for me to just spell them. So DVONN is a 2-player abstract, as almost all the games in the series are. In DVONN, basically, you have a board that's shaped like a long gemstone, basically. The way I would think of it is, imagine a hex, except you make it longer. Okay? I don't know how else to describe
like an oblong gemstone.
Yeah, and the board is basically made up of a bunch of triangles within that general shape. There's 3-sided normal isosceles triangles. And in each of those intersections, there's a dot. So basically, you have a bunch of triangles that are making up this board shape. And what matters is the intersections. Those are the actual spots on the board. All of the triangles are meant to make... So every spot, generally, in the middle of the board has 6 lines going out of it in each direction. So it's like a grid. I mean, it's a very simple shape. Each player then has 23 rings, and there's also 3 red rings. And what you do at the start of the game is the players alternate putting their rings on the board, 1 on each space. And when you're done, every single space on the board is covered with a ring. So what happens is the way they do that fairly is the first player places a red ring, and then the second player places a red ring, and the third player places a red ring. And then after that, you're placing rings of your own color. And then the first player places their ring last, which is a little bit of a very small disadvantage, but then they get to go first. So on your turn, all you do is you consider every ring on the board is a stack of size 1. If it's sitting by itself, it's a stack of size 1. On your turn, you can take any ring that's not surrounded by 6 other rings or stacks and move it a number of spaces equal to the number of rings in that stack. So at the start of the game, they all have size 1, so you can move them all to an adjacent space. You control a stack if your ring color is the one on top of it. You can never, obviously, ever move the red rings. They're going to stay on the board. The only way they ever get moved is if you move a stack and it manages to land on top of one. Okay? Straightforward enough. So the way the game ends, let's jump to that so you know the winner is. You take all the stacks that are remaining on the board when no one can make a move, and you pile up all the stacks that you are in control of, and if your pile's bigger than the other player, you win. That's it. So it's basically who controls the most rings of all colors. Okay, so the tricky part of the game is, it seems like this is fairly straightforward stacking, but those red rings are really important. As soon as there are any rings or stacks on the board that aren't directly connected to a red ring or a stack with a red ring in it, you can't just trace a sequence of spaces to get there that have rings on them. As soon as there's like a gap and you can't get over that gap, all of the ones that are unconnected are removed from the game. It doesn't matter whether you have a huge stack in the middle of that. If it's not connected to a red ring, it's gone. Okay? Also, whenever you move a ring or a stack, you have to be able to move it, and the moves are always in straight lines. You have to be able to move it onto another ring or stack. If you can't do that, I mean, once no one can make a valid move anymore, that's when the game ends. And that's it. That's the entire rules of the game. It's about, I would say, like, the rules complexity is about that of checkers. If you sit down and explain checkers out, once you see that set on a board, it's really obvious how to play it. It takes like 5 minutes when you first learn it, but then the more you play it, it starts taking a little longer because you're trying to see. I mean, you're trying to think ahead moves and trying to identify what your opponent's doing, so it becomes a longer game. But it never ends up being a very long game. It's a very nice, quick little abstract. I would say it's one of the lighter ones in the gift series. I don't know if it's the lightest, but it's on the lighter end of the series, I would definitely say. If you're looking for a nice 10-minute abstract that's really easy to explain, it's got really kind of cool pieces. The rings are made out of a really hard plastic that at first my son actually thought might have been made out of metal. We were tapping it, and I was like, it's plastic. He's like, no, maybe it's metal. The components are really nice. It looks kind of neat on the table, but that's true of all the gift games. They look like neat abstracts. I like it. It's been played a lot in my house this last week. The reason I'm going through the gift games is my kids kind of pulled them back out, and we've been going through them again. And this is just a really good one. Like I said, it's a light abstract. Don't expect it to be really heavy. But I think it's about the complexity of checkers, but I think there's more going on than a game of checkers. And that is DVONN, DVONN. It's in a very red box.
Considering your love for abstract games, Trent, this sounds like this is a pretty good entry level for your kids.
Yes. My kids can handle heavier abstracts than this, no doubt, but they appreciate lighter ones as well. So I think abstracts just scratch a certain itch in my house. And at the same time, I will say I don't think anyone in my family has the desire to dig deep enough into a particular abstract to become like a chess master or something like that. I don't think that's it. They enjoy playing them about 20 or 25 times, and they want to move on to another one, and then maybe come back to a previous abstract. We generally play it just enough so that there's a couple obvious openings and there's a couple obvious things that you're doing. We figured out a few strategies, and then we move on to another game.
Yeah. TC, what do you think about abstract games in general, and have you played anything in the GIF series?
I haven't played anything in GIF series, but in terms of abstracts, I really like the Duke. I think that is a phenomenal two-player game, and we played the bejesus out of that thing. And man, and, you know, the more I play Fort Sumner, the new Mark Herman game, that's pretty abstract. I mean, it has a real light. I mean, the history's there, but it's really
that could have been an abstract.
Yeah, so I have no problems with abstracts. I mean, you could even argue chess being an abstract, and you know that's fine.
Well, chess is definitely an abstract.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't have no. I do prefer my theme, and I will take a crazy, random, chaotic themed game any day.
Crazy, random.
Yeah, but
you've been spending too much in school.
I will be first to admit that I'm liking Fallout. Just not because it's balanced.
Yeah. You see, I just sent myself a text to pull out the Duke again. So, yeah.
I talk about abstracts long in the future. Just I don't have any experience with it, and I love hearing other people talk about games they enjoy. And so it makes me go, Oh, and the Hive. The Hive is another one, and another abstract I really enjoy. Got bugs.
Oh, yeah, Hive.
In fact, that's a good one. You know, if we're talking about games to teach, I usually always carry that game around on me.
Hive has a very unique distinction in my collection. It's the only board game in my collection that I've dropped into a lake and still own.
Holy crap! But that thing probably sank to the bottom.
It did. It sunk about 2 feet, and then I was able to retrieve it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any of those.
Are we doing quick reviews too?
If you want to do a quick review, do a quick review, man.
Yeah. I just want to briefly mention that we're talking about games that just came out that none of us are aware of. There is actually a new Legendary Encounters game out.
Ooh, the X-Files one?
The X-Files. One of the guys at Game Night on Wednesday broke it out and says, "You like X-Files?" I'm like, "No, not really." He goes, "Well, I got this new Legendary Encounters." I was like, I will play that. But I thought you didn't like X-Files. I don't like X-Files, but I love this system. And if you like X-Files and you like Legendary, it's pretty good. Apparently it takes I don't know this for a fact, but apparently it takes all the seasons from the show and puts it in a deck and you play through them. And so the Cigarette Man came out, and I know the Carrie Yules came out, so it's kind of cool to have the Princess Bride in my deck. I was like, is that Carrie Yules? Yeah. Ooh, he is definitely going to my deck because he's awesome. But it was a very enjoyable, quick game. And the biggest difference between this one and the other ones is that when that row comes out to buy, you actually have to scan those things to flip them over to buy them. So that makes things a little bit more difficult and a lot more interesting because now villains can actually come out in that row, which is called the Bureau. So yeah, it's same. It's not doing anything tremendously innovative with the system, but it's a solid legendary encounter system. The artwork is so far above and beyond Firefly. It's awesome. They actually took stills from the show instead of hiring some artists to try to draw characters they can't. So that was a nice step up. It comes with a neoprene mat like the other three did. So if you like X-Files and you like Legendary Encounters, man, check this one out. Like I said, I didn't even know it existed until I played it Wednesday, and I enjoyed my play of it.
Cool.
Then I proceeded to have my butt handed to me in A Legend of the Five Rings. But that's a different story.
A much more funny story. My family, we basically just our Legendary consists of the Encounters game, and I'm really looking forward to getting this one.
Yeah, if you like the system, at the very least, if you like the system, it does a few things differently that are pretty cool.
The idea of the card flip over you described sounds like a good twist.
Yeah, because sometimes they'll flip over and be like, oh, there's this monster you got to fight. And what it's doing is, like, if you buy a card adjacent to it, it won't refresh until you kill this thing. So you're like, oh.
Yeah, they made it so that the scanning is like you need to do it. Like it's, you know, in the other Legendary games, you can do it, but a lot of times you don't. And then you just flip cards and go, oh, no. But in this one, like, scanning is what I recall is what they told me was more an emphasis.
Yeah. So yeah, it was good stuff. Good stuff. So and actually it kind of ties in, maybe it ties in a little bit to what we want to discuss. And it's a deck building game. Since it's cooperative, it's a pretty easy game to teach to beginners if they're trying to learn a deck building mechanism. I mean, you know, because they're not like, it's not like Dominion where you're kind of working by yourself, or like Star Realms where you're like trying to crush someone, but this one actually makes you cooperate and work together to overcome what the game is throwing at you. So, you know, and in general, I think cooperative games are easier games to teach because you're saying, hey, we're not trying to crush each other. We're trying to work together to overcome something.
My game group today, high school gamers, you know, and I don't think a lot of these guys, you know, by at least some definitions would not be beginners, especially many of them have played many games. But, you know, they played Pandemic, and the cooperative nature of that helps with, you know, everybody learning the game easier, you know, without having people at your throat. I do think, though, the Star Realms is a really good deck building game to get people into the genre, just because it's so quick. It's like 2 players. I've had very good success with that as well.
It's like just 20 minutes, but you know, there's some people out there like, I don't like getting beat up on all the time. So like, hey, I got this cooperative one. You want to fight the alien queen? Yeah, cool. Here we go.
It's a really good system too. I would say it's a very high quality narrative experience. I think that it does a good job of abstracting a storyline into a mission deck, and then making that mission deck something that's really fun to fight against. Mechanically and thematically, it does it for me. All right, so that was a quick little window into the X-Files. And I'm now going to round it out here with a game that is going to be a good game for beginners to teach, which will lead us right into our topic. The game I'm talking about is called Jungle Race. It's also by Cranio Creations, and it is also designed by Simone Luciani. And this one is like the Hare and Tortoise, the Tales and Games, the Hare and Tortoise game that's kind of about bidding on animals to start the game and then trying to make those animals cross the finish line first. In this game, it's a very similar setup where you've just got the 5 animals that are all racing against each other, only you put them on 5 cards that are just, you know, representing their relationship in their position in relation to the other 4 racers. Then you will deal out 7 cards to every player. All 7 of these cards will score. You will score all 7 of your cards. On your turn, you can either pass and just put your entire hand face down and you're just done for the round, or you can play a card which is going to then make that animal move up by 1, unless it's in front, in which case it breaks down and then goes to the back. And there is no backwards, like if they're in the back, they don't go to the front or anything like that. It's just like they go 1 ahead. So you sit there and you keep revealing your hand, giving other players more information until finally you pass, because you feel like you're in a good enough position, because at the end of the round, whoever's in first gets 3, whoever's in second gets 2, and whoever's in third gets 1. Now, you're not just going to have 1 card of an animal. You're going to have 7 cards, and there's 5 animals. So you're guaranteed to have doubles of at least 1 animal, and sometimes you'll get as many as 3 or 4 in a single animal. And so you're going to score that multiple times. So you can get, you know, like 12 points in a round. I've had a round where I had like 2 points because I just got railed. None of my animals scored. So this to me is like taking the Hare and Tortoise, and instead of the hand management aspect of it, it's just all about the bluffing. Bluffing and then a little bit of this position relationship to each other. But it's, I would say, an even easier game to teach because you can just, you know, a lot of new players will be like, okay, I can pass, I'll just pass. And that just lets them see what a round looks like as it plays out. I would say passing is not a great idea on your first turn. It's actually terrible. But you know, getting to jockey around these animals and playing cards to try to like bluff which ones you have, to me, it works. It works really well. It's just like the Hare and Tortoise. Now I feel like I have a second copy of a game that's similar to Hare and Tortoise. This one maybe even easier. You can play, it's supposed to be played over 3 rounds, but really you could just play 1 and see who wins. It could be a 10-minute game if you want it to be. Otherwise, at most, it's going to be like 20, 30 minutes. So to me, this is an excellent example of a good game for beginners to teach, which is the topic on this episode of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. By the way, sponsored by Game Surplus. Check them out at GameSurplus.
Yeah, check them out.
And, oh man, awesome news here. First of all, thanks so much to the individuals that donated to get a set of Braille dice for a gamer in the local high school game group that I just worked with today. Those, I got an email from Shapeways, and they shipped out today. So hopefully I'll have them within a week or so. And then the very inspiring gamer that was present at Gamers Club today, we played Zombie Dice, which is one of his, he just loves that game. And then Ink and Gold, which is a game that, due to the limited amount of decision-making and the ability for the table to explain what's going on very easily, was an excellent fit for this vision-impaired student that the community here at The Good, Bored, Ugly has been supporting through the set of Braille dice that was donated generously by listeners of The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. So thank you very much for that. And now for our topic, good games for beginners to teach. Trent, TC, you gentlemen both have kids. What's a game that you would want Liam to teach? What's a game that you would want Kate to teach? What's a game, Trent, that you would want Joe and your other...
Katie and Matthew.
I was going to say Kate, but I was like, oh no, that's... Kate, Matthew I've almost rarely met, but I should have remembered Katie. I was going to say Kate. If it means anything, I was almost there. But anyway, for you guys, maybe thinking about what would you want to start them if they're going to have to teach the game themselves. Like, what is a game that you could play with them to the point where they could actually teach it?
Abstracts.
Haba.
It's a cop-out answer, but I mean, for my family, it's mostly because they're familiar with them in general, and I think that, I mean, I've witnessed my kids teaching like my dad abstract games, and they can do it pretty well. I think abstracts lend themselves well to people who are just learning how to teach a game, because generally they're all about like very basic rules and emergent gameplay, and they don't worry about theme. And I think that's perfect for a kid to be teaching. So I'd say abstracts.
Yeah, and that way it's just about the rules. Because as soon as you start to become involved in the explanation and the justification is when you can get muddier waters. This just keeps it clean, keeps it to something that you can't really, you either get it right or you get it wrong. There isn't, much room for interpretation. TC, what's your take?
Oh, well, that's kind of easy. I mean, I got my kids. They're already teaching games, but it's interesting the difference, the type of games they want to teach because of age and personality. Right now, my son Liam is into anything with race cars or monsters. So he still gravitates toward Haba games, and he's really good at teaching those. And if you have children, Haba games are a definite way to go. Right now, he's played Monza for a long time, and he always drag, like every time I go to a game day on a weekend, he always drags that game to teach people to play, and he's really good at it. And it's also taught him, more importantly, how to lose with style, because man, for a while, I don't know if you experienced this, Trent, but man, first time my kids lost and they didn't know how to take it, was like, oh my goodness, it was like meltdowns and apocalypse and all that. But I think for my 8-year-old, just, it's the game, and it feels comfortable teaching, and those generally tends to be Haba games or like My First Stone Age or something like that. Now for Kate, thanks to you, Joe,
14 now.
Yeah, freshman in high school. Thanks to you, Joe, and thanks to Dungeon Pets, which I went squarely on you. She's really good at just teaching games that they have to be engaging, and I think they have a large thing with Vlada Chvátil's games is that their rule books are readable and they're engaging. And most rule books are like a GMT rule book, are like 0.1, 0.2. But Kate could just read that whole rule book for Dungeon Pets, Dungeon Lords, Galaxy Trucker, and once she got her handle on that, she can teach them. And Kate is also very, very good at teaching people how to play the Munchkin collectible card game because we played it so much. But I think the key here is just making sure they're wanting to teach games they enjoy playing. It's not like, hey, we're bringing this game to the table. Okay, Kate, you teach it. Well, Dad, I've only played this twice. I don't really like it. I don't care. You're teaching it anyway because I don't want to. Right. So Trent says abstracts. I would tend to say any Haba game would be good. I have yet to run across a really stinky Haba game. I've run across some that weren't terribly strategic, but they were still solid and fun. Does that kind of answer the question?
Dude, I think you answered it from many different angles, because I think that there's Trent's approach, there's an importance to teach something that you can grok, teach something that you can explain, teach something that's simple. But then you said, TC, that with Liam, that's what you want him to do. That's where you expect him to have the most success. Whereas with Kate, that's something that she's passionate about. And that would be my main addition, is that I don't have the same experience that you guys do in really seeing how it works when, you've got people that are teaching games and beginners teaching games. But I'm just, teach something you're passionate about, because here's the thing. It might not go great the first time. If you're passionate about it, you're going to keep at it. And you're going to, it's my first teaches of games. I have games still to this day that when I teach them, I'm like, God, I'm doing a terrible job teaching this. This is just terrible. You can have a good game, but a bad teach of it. Even if you're somebody who likes the game, who is trying to do their best to make it a positive experience. And that could happen, especially to somebody who's new at teaching games. Not every experience, sometimes you might need to tug on the sleeve of somebody around who you expect can help you. But really, if you're doing something you're passionate about, you're going to be able to do whatever it takes to overcome those hurdles that, could make the game difficult to teach. So, if you want, keep it to something simple and easy to explain, something where you almost have a procedure to teach that's been outlined for you by somebody who's taught you the game. So you can have games that are literally that easy, the types of games where when you pick up the box and look at the back, it says 1, 2, 3. These are the 3 steps to play in the game. That's an easy game, because you just show people this is what we do. And there are games that are that easy, but not every game is. And if you want to get the more depth out of an experience, sometimes to get more depth out of an experience, you have to be willing to overcome more hurdles, especially in the learning of a complex system. So beginners, teach what you're passionate about. If you're really leery of teaching and don't care or aren't passionate about a particular game or a particular system, then choose something that is tried and true and easy to explain. That's my take, but you guys have the real experience. So
you pretty much described why I have my kids teach abstracts. I know they enjoy them, and they tend to have a rule set that they can handle teaching without leaving out big chunks of the rules.
It's the best of both worlds.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's, it's a good thing to bring up, because, a lot of times you're just getting into the hobby and you're really excited for it, but you maybe have an experience that's cooling, or that makes you think for a second, oh, that wasn't, I thought that was going to be so much better than it actually turned out. And a lot of times, it's tough to even be able to step back and see why that was. Just to give an example, there was a new game played of the really hot Kickstarter game, Everdell, at our local game night a couple of weeks ago. And when the game got over, I rarely have I ever heard a complaint like this, but it was man, we really need to make sure that deck gets shuffled next time, because it was the deck was coming out in order. And that's something that I would consider to be a mistake that, if I was the person teaching the game, I would learn from that. Right? That you don't want a game experience to be poisoned by something.
I think something like that's a great thing to general and learn about teaching games. That's something that beginning gamers will often miss when they're setting up a game, is how important it is to shuffle that deck.
Yeah,
that's a general useful thing to know as a board gamer, is shuffle that deck before you start.
Yeah, a lot of times, think a party game. You don't have to shuffle a party games deck, because it's kind of inconsequential as you get. But when a game deck has been, if it's a game that has strategic differences between cards, the chances are they were either sorted by alphabetical or sorted by power or something like that. And if they're not supposed to be sorted and you're playing with a sorted deck, a game cannot feel right. Or if a game has been stacked in the opposite direction. So there's I guess try to do your homework is maybe another thing to say, Trent, about taking that to the next level of the components in a game. Make sure that you have punched the game. Make sure that you have done your like the diligence aspects of how am I going to get the game here? How is it going to be stored while it's there? And how's it going to get back into the box? Now, if it's a simple, like I just throw all the pieces in because, you know, there's not many pieces in the game. Something like One Night Ultimate Werewolf doesn't really need a bag. You could have one, but it's not really needed. But like, you know, like that one doesn't necessarily need a way to organize it as you put it back in. But if a game doesn't have that, you know, and you're taking things out of an unsealable bag, meaning one that you have to puncture to get components out of, like they're not going back in there. So maybe think in advance, you know, grab a handful of Ziploc bags if it's a bigger game. That way you'll at least not have loose components rolling all over the place and maybe accidentally lose something. A lot of those things, like it's weird. Like I'd say just getting your feet wet is one of the biggest things that I'd say if you're a beginner, just be ready to make mistakes because you learn from them that way. And a lot of times, like, you know, you can't really prepare for every single possible outcome. You just kind of have to jump in, and it's not always going to be the easiest experience ever. Sometimes that's because your own preparation could change. Sometimes it's because the people at the table are, you know, like causing maybe some sort of a hurdle to overcome that a player is not understanding, or a player isn't, you know, maybe the right fit for the type of game it is. Maybe they're looking for something less or more strategic than what you're playing, and they kind of like, you know, play on their phone a little bit. So I would say the biggest thing is you know, these things happen. You won't be the first person that's ever had to deal with adversity and trying to get a point across and trying to get a game played. But, you know, you're doing a beautiful thing, and beginners, be ready to take the wheel and teach the games because it is especially helpful when your other gamers that are present, when you can share those games. Because I mean, like, you know, I can feed you, but it's only going to feed you for one meal. It's that, you know, if I teach you how to get your own food, that's preparing you for the entire lifetime. And that's what this hobby is. This hobby is not just a once and done thing. This is something that you do. And if you really like it, it can be a lifestyle, and it's something that you can do for a long time. Right, Trent?
Yes. Very long time.
Don't teach the game by reading out of the rule book.
Oh my God! Yes,
you can discover. Murr is here with yes. That is another thing that as a beginner you might think like, hey, I got this new game. Let's check it out. Rule book, and it's like, oh no, is this the first time you've seen it? If you see somebody doing that, that's how most people, like if you buy a game at Target or something, if it's a mass market game, you're probably going to expect to be able to get that game out, learn the game, and have it played real soon. But not every game in the hobby is like that. You know, if you specifically want to find games that are like that, I'm sure that you can. But, you know, sometimes you might have a sympathetic group that is okay with learning the game as a group and know that that's what they're in for. But don't expect other players, especially not people who are in the hobby, to have the patience for you to go through a rule book. Like, nothing would kill my soul more than just to be like, sure, I'll play this game with you since you've mentioned it to me like 500 times. Then I sit down and they're like, pull out the rule book. You mean you haven't even read the rule book for this and you've asked me to play it so many times? And then he's like, no, I was waiting for you to. No, you learned the game, man. It's still cool and all, but, you know, I mean, that sounds like it's a real thing. I've actually never had that happen. I just am picturing it. So, and there are videos out there, as Murr has also put. Rodney Smith's Watch It Played is really good and covers a lot of games, especially the new ones coming out. So if you're playing something new, you'll probably find information online for how to plays, and they're getting really high quality. You know, the quality of Paul Grogan's gaming rules videos, to me, like, I wish I could do half the stuff he does with editing to make a rules explanation just, you know, come to life and make it immediately understandable. You know, to me, like, it's just really fantastic things that people are putting out and putting a lot of time and effort into, and you can support them by watching their videos. It'll also help you to learn the game. So there's definitely multiple ways to learn a game. You don't necessarily have to read and learn from the rule book. You can find people who are willing to teach you. If you go to a public game night, you know, you're probably not going to have to do the teaching. You go to that public game night, and then, you know, you can also learn from like videos, and there's ways for you to learn by doing and learn by watching, not just reading. Well, guys, is there any like specific game, like the name of a game that we want to mention? I'd say Jungle Race and Penk are the two that are on my mind, because I feel like, you know, Sushi Go Party, abstract games like Trent mentioned, you know, that those ones like just can have people are familiar with tabletop abstracts. You show them one that's like that, they're going to immediately feel like, oh, okay, you mean like backgammon or like chess or like checkers. You know, these like ones that are similar to games people have already played by itself is going to help you out. That's why I think, Trent, your abstracts is a great idea. People have played backgammon. They played chess. They played checkers. It won't be too hard to learn DVONN.
No, DVONN is a really simple one to learn.
Yeah, so thank you guys for sharing. I think that you guys are great to be able to bounce ideas off of, to hear your diversity of your experience, TC, and just, Trent, the way that you've had success with those abstracts. I mean, to me, I have not got that same experience, but I am needing to rely more on people who are going to be new to gaming to teach others games, as my game group at the high school pivots into a system in which kids are able to get community service hours by learning games and then coming and helping me run this game night. So it's, to me, something I'm extremely excited to be doing. But then I know that there's going to be people who are showing up whose only experience is with, you know, mass market games, and maybe they think they play a lot of games. Maybe they do. Who knows? And maybe they'll be open. But there's just a lot of question marks. There's a lot of beginners in my future. They're going to be teaching games for me. So this was a great topic, and it was suggested by one of my game group at the high school who supports by coming on and listening to this podcast. So Carter, thank you very much for suggesting this topic. It was a great time talking about it. And now into our hype. We're going to be hyping a couple of games here. Maybe TC will insert a third one. But let's go ahead and kick off a system that I'm wondering, Trent, is this a new expansion, or is this a whole new separate IP or separate product from BattleCON?
Okay, I'm going to hype two games, but I'm going to hype this one first and then another surprise one after that.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so this one, BattleCON Wanderers that I'm mentioning, is there's a Kickstarter starting tomorrow for BattleCON, and basically what it is it's like, they're finally releasing a storage box that will store everything, and along with it, they're releasing another small expansion of like 10 new BattleCON characters, and this one's called Wanderers of Endines. The reason I mention this is because up to this point, there really hasn't been a consistent way of storing all the characters. It's been fairly inconsistent from game to game. It's been kind of confusing. And this is just like, they're going to release tuck boxes for every character that's ever been made, is what's going to come in the storage box.
You knew that was the eventual solution. Like, that was...
They needed to do that. They should have done this from day one when they made Devastation. Because what they should have done from day one with this is had it that way. But I don't think they really saw it as something that would continue and continue and continue, because the system's really good. I kind of am looking forward to having that kind of storage system. Plus, more BattleCON characters is great. I will say my oldest son has gone through phases where he really has enjoyed BattleCON. Really. And it's always fun when new characters come out. It's a very nice, flexible 2-player game.
Trent, every time I hear you talk about your kid and playing games, I think about that Star Wars Destiny and the that pod race thing with Annie.
So great. I'm talking about my oldest son here, but that was my youngest son. We went.
Oh man, that was. Oh, I could just see him playing BattleCON and doing something similar, man.
It was great. He had so much fun at that Destiny tournament when he was like, he looks kind of like young Anakin in episode 1, kind of. That's the thing. And he's like, yippee, and like playing with pod racers.
That story never gets old. I'm sorry. I could discuss it every episode. It just never, ever gets old. I can just see everyone going, oh. Anyway, sorry to detract you.
So my second one, and I would have talked about this, but I would have mentioned this in advance, but this is just fun to drop if you two haven't heard about this. So today, a new game from Volka Runke was announced. He's the designer of a lot of the coin games, very heavy war games with some Euro elements to them.
He designed the first one, I believe, too, Andy and Abyss.
Yeah, he was a designer for Andy and Abyss. Was it Labyrinth, The War on Terror, and a bunch of other craziness?
What kind of transported
He's been heavily involved as a designer or like a consultant on all the coin games. So today he announced a new game and it is called Mystery Wizard.
What?
Yeah.
First X-Files and now this?
I should point out, this is apparently a co-design with his son, who also designed one of the co-games, or the coin games. And Mystery Wizard is like a 60 to 90-minute fantasy-themed game on a hex grid map. And it looks to me like it involves a fair amount. It looks to me like it's a card-driven war game for up to 6 players on a hex grid map with fantasy theming. And I'm just like... And get this is GMT's publishing it.
Was this on the Mr. Newsletter or
Oh,
something?
Mystery Wizard.
Mr. Okay, I gotta look this up now. Keep on.
This is answer to magical athlete.
Magical athlete.
On a hexed isle for access across the shining, or on a hexed isle far across the shining sea, wizards duel for magical supremacy and the fate of the island itself. Mystery Wizard is a game for 2 to 6 players that takes around an hour to play, starring 8 unique spellcasting characters, each providing a radically different strategic experience. When each player chooses a wizard, they are selecting a totally unique set of spells and abilities, which will flavor their strategic choices and paths to victory. It's developed by Andrew Runke, and it's got a whole list of designers and other developers. I'm looking through it. Yeah, I've heard of some of these people. But anyway, GMT is publishing it. Yeah. Okay, I just P500 this sucker. I'm on it now. The artwork. There's like a bear holding a pig. There is a bear holding a pig. Yeah, I'm done. It's ordered. I got it. It's coming. Yes, it's GMT time, folks.
It is. This looks insane. This looks really intriguing. There's like a dice with hearts on it. There's wow. Oh, low complexity. Low solitary, yeah. It's like
I should point out, low complexity is not what most people think of as low complexity.
That's true. I shouldn't say that's a benefit here, because they might go GMT complexity 3. Oh my goodness, wasn't that like Here I Stand level?
I think Twilight Struggle is like a 3 or 4.
Yeah, I opened their email today and I was like, what?
Check this out. Here we go. Ready? It says, this is from the Volco. What I adore about Mystery Wizard is all the personality packed into various wizards. It reminds me fondly of Cosmic Encounter. Okay, yeah. Kate, you should take a look at this.
Yeah. Oh. What is GMT doing? What is Volco doing? And it sounds like
no idea. I was amazed.
Designing something with his kid.
I thought Leaping Lemmings was nuts. This is we're right back there.
Well, to continue the mind-blowing, I just want to, for those of you that are like Trent and myself, and maybe TC, I don't know, TC, if you had a chance to play it yet, but addicted to Root, or at least very intrigued by Root, picture that the upcoming expansions, the ones that are not out right now, but look to be added sometime off in the future, because right now they're just P&Ps that I saw a snap of on Twitter, and that is a new faction called the Burrowing Burrow. And I'm just picturing, like, movement in that game is very specific and kind of tough to do, and results in you really needing to be intentional with how you do things. Imagine if you had a faction that could like create tunnels for like high-speed transit. Like, to me, that's just where my brain goes with this. I have no idea if that's what it is or not, but just all I know is what a picture of the player map looked like, and to me, this is really thrilling. So the Burrowing Burrow and whatever's coming in the new expansion for Roots, if that's what this even is, I guess maybe I did a lot more presuming than I even realize I have credit to be able to say, but I just saw a picture.
Leader Games right now is doing a lot of encouragement of the community to come up with new factions, and also with new Vagabond powers. And they've strongly implied that there may be a fan faction expansion coming.
Woo!
Really strongly implying that in a couple different places. Like, they're going to encourage people to make a bunch of these, and then they're going to go, like, check with some of the ones, and then have a contest. Everybody that gives permission, then they're going to have a contest, and the top 4 vote getters get printed.
Mm-hmm.
That type of thing. The coolest, I will say, I've been looking at a lot of these fan-made expansions, like character ones. The neatest one I saw was one that basically you're playing a solitaire version of Princes of Florence, where you're trying to put pieces on a grid on your board, and you use those to score points, and it's like kind of a tangram type of puzzle. Very different direction.
Yeah, well, I didn't even know that story behind it, but that's pretty cool. I'm just excited, that to me that there's a lot of cool unexplored territory, at least for me, for Root right now, and the fact that that's an expanding world is really exciting.
Yeah, there's also another one. This is actually by the leader guy from Leader Games, the guy, the head of the company. One he's also posted is one that's it's crows, and the crows put black cards in other players' hands. And if they're ever forced to discard a black card, the crow player gets points.
Yeah.
So the way you prevent them from getting points is to make your hand terrible?
Man, I need to play Root. I've got to find a copy of this game.
You really do, TC. This is like I don't know.
I think I wasted my time playing Destiny 2 instead of looking for Root. I am an idiot.
No, you don't need to. Instead of looking for Root, just stop what you wasted your time playing Destiny 2.
I felt, guys. It's like if I hear something's bad, I just got to see it. I don't know. It's a character flaw. I know, but yeah, I've actually seen people play Root. I've actually Kate's seen pictures of Root and wants to play the cats. I'm just like, where can we get that? Like, I'm sorry, I missed my opportunity. Gotta wait for the reprint. I'm sorry.
So you know, everybody, if you want to sell something to the TC, just tell them it sucks.
Yeah, well, that's a given. That's a given. Fallout's terrible. Really? Where is it?
Hey, TC, you should buy. You should totally buy this jam that I made. It sucks.
Well, I don't know. Ingesting something might be a little different.
Maybe there's a line there. Okay.
Maybe we found my threshold. Geez, I think my hype. If we
go for it, dude. You're gonna
this is completely random, but I bought the newest pack for my Arkham Horror card game, and I was looking through it at work today. I probably shouldn't say that. Anyway, I was looking through it. And have you gotten this one, Trent, yet? Have you looked through it?
No, I have not. It's sitting for me, waiting for me at Main Street, but I haven't gotten it yet.
I was looking through it, and there's like what I thought was new character cards, but it's like you become a monster. I was like, huh, this looks really cool. I can't wait to see what they do.
So
with
it
this.
replaces your character card?
Yeah, it was called the body of a Yithian, and it looks like it completely replaces your character. Completely. I don't know how
is
it works.
This a scenario thing that happens in the scenario, or
I haven't opened it up. I haven't looked at the scenario book. I'm assuming so, or something that causes something to happen to you, or you go into.
And there's so much mechanically weird stuff.
I know that's one of the things I enjoy. Is like every time I buy a new pack of cards for this thing, just when I think maybe I'm done with this, or maybe I've seen everything this game can do, I see something like this. I'm like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to get this to the table. This is going to be great. And another neat thing they're doing is with the, the little packet you get into it, the page that describes the scenario, it's actually numerically ordered. So if you have them from the beginning, you can just put them all together in the book, and it actually has a page number at the bottom, right? So it's like, okay, this is page 13, 14, 15, 16. So you can actually compress them all together into a book if you wanted to. That's kind of cool, because I know when I was playing the previous campaigns, I was like, I don't know, that'd be nice to have like a page reference for the rules that come up in previous ones. So it looks like they're making small but interesting changes to the game, and it's cool.
I will say, I'm playing through the Path to Carcosa expansion with some of my friends, like as a group. And I don't know, I'm going to spoil a little bit for anyone who's played this. This happens a little ways in. So, all right, if you hate Arkham Horror, the card game spoilers, and don't want anything ever spoiled for you about the Path to Carcosa expansion, pause your podcast now. Stop, okay? I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, and we're going to go with it. 3, 2, 1. You've been warned. There's a point about halfway through, and I don't know whether this happened to you, because I don't think it necessarily happens to every group. But with our group, we reached the point where it says for the rest of the campaign, if you say the name Haster, you lose a sanity.
Oh yes, we hit that. Oh yes, that was one of the things that threw that whole campaign into awesomeness. Because there was an instance where we were playing the last campaign, and we were really good about not saying that. And Carissa flipping mentions that name, right? And after she did that, every time she reached her hand into that darn chaos bag, she drew the fail token. She cursed our whole campaign, our Mythos pack, because she invocated that which shouldn't have been said. Oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing I've noticed is that I've played through that one again too, and depending on doubt, what was it? It's doubt and conviction. Is that
yes.
Depending on how you peg that up, it really changes the way that whole thing unfolds.
Oh, I know. We did a scenario today where we had conviction and it was working against us the whole time, and it was like,
yeah. And was one scenario, again, we're talking spoilers here, the organist, the Phantom of the Opera.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, will function differently depending on if you have conviction or doubt. And one of them is
completely different.
And one of them is very, very bad because all of a sudden he lacks you a lot.
That's the one where if you have doubt, he's horrible. He's really horrible. If you have conviction, he's manageable. But then basically it makes it really hard to advance the scenario. It takes a lot more turns to get through because essentially all the requirements for going to the next act are higher.
Yeah, the way
the challenge of it's completely different with whether you have doubt or conviction. Point of all this is, if you're still listening, is the Arkham Horror the card game does a lot of interesting mechanical stuff.
And it does it in a really, really cool thematic way. I mean, it's like everything I like. It's like I said before when I did my top 10, this has completely replaced the board game for me. I'm probably not even going to bother looking at 3rd edition at this point because I'm enjoying the card game so much.
I decided I'm not looking at the Forgotten Age stuff until the whole cycle's done. But that just seems bizarre that you like literally would replace your character card.
That's doing some, and there's like a vengeance mechanism that can bite you if you don't realize how that works. And honestly, the Forgotten Age is brutal. It is of the 3, it is the hardest to get through. But that's half the fun, is building a deck to try to overcome it. But anyway, that's kind of my hype and my talk. Is we are still. Sounds like me and Trent both are still really enjoying the Arkham Horror card. And this has been out for almost a year and a half now. Almost
about a year and a half, I think.
Yeah, and it's interesting because usually games kind of peter out, but this one is still consistently on the hotness. I think it's like the top deck building game, maybe. I'm having a deck construction game.
Right now, it's on number 10 on the board game, BGG hotness.
Yeah, I think I haven't looked at the ratings for it in general, but I know it used to be up there.
It is currently
customizable, number 1. Yeah,
it's number 1 customizable, number 18 overall,
and 8 in thematic. So yeah, this thing fires on all cylinders. The only downside is the price to entry, but man, is it worth it.
All right, well, guys, that price to entry could be quite a bit. It's been a lot of content that's been released there, and quite a bit content got added here at the end here, all about Arkham Horror the card game. So
Arkham Horror Love Fest.
Yeah, little Arkham Horror Love Fest to end this episode, The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly. I know it's early, guys, for us to be ending, but honestly, I could use the sleep. I hope that you guys will be able to all rest up as well here that have been listening in and sharing in with me. Thanks for being here, Trent, TC.
Man, thanks for having me. Glad I could make it.
Yeah. Everybody have a great week of gaming and catch us next week here on The Good, the Bored, and the Ugly.
Okay,